Hi everyone, this is Mr. Book 451 at outlook.com and welcoming you to my third YouTube video. What you're about to see is a selection of science fiction, fantasy and horror paperbacks. They're all A format and they're all books that are for sale. So anything you see in my videos, I will never tease you with wonderful things that are not for sale. That everything you see is for sale. And I'll tell you the prices as we go. And the theme of today's video is just paperbacks with covers that I really like. And there's no rhyme or reason to this. There's no artists as a theme. There's no publishers that are a theme. Although I will mention one or two and give them a pat on the back for what I think is really good art direction or, what have you. But and when I say the vintage, but for somebody like myself, vintage, when I was growing up was 30s, 40s, 50s. When we take vintage here, most of these are 70s, 80s, I would say 60s, 70s, 80s. But we'll have a look as we go. A couple of things that I forgot in the last one. I'm trying to get the camera in the right place so you don't get half the table and not see the books. But forgive me because I'm not a professional YouTuber in any respect and I'm not a professional photographer. I'm just trying to show you the books the best I can. So I'm going to show you a couple of things I forgot last time was somebody asked me, can you make sure that you pack the books well when you send them? I've been buying books mail order for about 50 years and I know that sometimes books get sent through the post in packages that will not protect the book. So what I try and do is I try and pack everything with some card, and usually card bubble wrap, extra packaging at the corners in a strong box. Okay. Now there are exceptions because slim paperbacks, if you just order one or two, they can go a large letter. So I will maybe dispense with the bubble wrap and put stiff card front and back to prevent any dinks on the corners. But it just means it goes through that window at the post office. So that's one thing I'd like to say. And we do try and get the books out reasonably quickly. I'm hoping to post this on a Friday at the end of June. So let's hope I can get any orders out that come in over the weekend, should go out on Monday. What I would like to say is I'm just starting out on this journey on YouTube. I've got a couple of videos up. I tend to sell about 30% of what I show. So if you have a look at the other two, if you haven't already seen them, you're new to this channel, you may still find books there that are in stock that just nobody else happened to want. It doesn't mean they're not nice books, but nobody else just happened to want them at the time. So here we have, as it says on the cover, Classic of the Occult Supernatural Omnibus. I'm actually going to try and go through these reasonably swiftly. So I'm not going to talk too much about them. It's not about the authors, it's not about the contents, it's about the covers. Isn't that beautiful? And that's all I'm going to say, apart from the fact it's £8. It's a penguin. So if you'd like to know more about it, you send me an email at Mr. Book, that's MR Book, Mr. Book 451 at outlook.com, and I'll tell you all about it. What a beautiful cover this is, a sort of pastoral scene, lots of greens, sort of grey purples, works really, really well. A number of the books I selected happen to be fantasy, but I'm as much at home with science fiction as fantasy. It's a lovely copy. That's £6. It's just got a little bit of rubbing, but it's basically a new book. Andre Norton. Now, this is a publisher. I'm going to talk about pocketbooks because I actually really like a lot of the covers that were done by pocketbooks in the 60s, 70s and the 80s. Now we do have, this is a beautiful copy. There's no reading creases, whatever. I've got £6 on this, and it's a lovely cover. Somebody being attacked by what looks like a kind of cross between a crab and a triffid. I've not read it, so I don't know. But what we have on the back is a sticker. Now, in the last video, I said I would share with you the magic ingredient that I use to get stickers off. And that is good old eucalyptus oil. Okay. Now, the reason I use eucalyptus oil is it comes from, obviously, the eucalyptus leaves or trees, whatever. So it's a natural oil. But the beauty is, I just put it there on a bit of tissue. This bottle's almost empty. Okay, it smells, so recommended not to do it just before you're having dinner. But you pop it on. Now you've got to be a little bit careful. This book, for example, doesn't have much in the way of lamination or varnish. It's obviously got some kind of varnish to seal the ink, but it doesn't have lamination. It's got a Dark They Were and Golden-Eyed sticker for £1, which, as many of you will know, Dark They Were and Golden-Eyed was a specialist bookshop in London for many years. I remember going there in the very early 80s, late 70s, early 80s, and was a great shop. Imported paperbacks from the States that nobody else imported. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put that to one side, because you've got to let that eucalyptus oil soak in. So I'm just going to talk about another few books while I'm doing that. Citadel of Fear, Francis Stevens. Look at that for a cover. Isn't that sensational? I'm just going to read who that, I'll take my glasses off, who that is. Steel Savage, it looks like. Not an expert on that, but look at that. Isn't that lovely? Very sort of Hannes Bock-esque. What have I got on that? £8. Look at that, front and back, wrap around, lovely spine, uncreased. If there are any faults with these books, I will tell you about it. I'm not here to hide it, and I'm not desperate to sell anything. In fact, you know, look at that beautiful Thomas Burnett Swan with a George Barr cover. Why would I want to sell that for £4? That must be crazy. Look, not spine, not sun, lovely dark red. And that is £4. Goodness gracious, you can't even buy a pint for £4 these days. Temple, Fleshpots of San Sato. For some reason, the purple and pink just works for me. I know it helps with the subject matter in this particular case, but it just works for me. This is a Nell from 1970. Isn't that beautiful? It's £6. I hope this is showing up all right on your screens, because I've given myself a couple of markers as to where the book should be placed. Do you know, there's a lot of fantasy covers that I really like just because they're quite pastoral. You know, they have that sort of blue in the sky, the green in the ground, and, you know, just dabs of colour here and there. But I would describe them as pastoral. Look at that, lovely. Again, lovely spine, not creased at all. This is a beautiful copy, and this is £8. So I'm hoping this will appeal to people who just like odd books for covers, cover art. A lot of us collect because of the covers. This is one of the Panthers that were produced in the late 70s, early 80s. And they did a lot of reprints of sort of classic Arkham House authors like Derleth, Lovecraft, etc. Clark Ashton Smith, of course. And this is the Fritz Leiber Night Monsters. I think this is really nice because I like the way the artist has got that perspective going up through the clothes that the bodies are wearing there, that monsters are wearing, and that sort of matches the way the buildings are going up. And that's really been designed beautifully, I think, by the artist. Again, lovely crisp spine, and I've got £20 on that one. But find a better copy if you can. One of the Time Lost series, the Centaur Press, that were done in the States. I don't know what it is about this cover. It's quite sort of crudely drawn, but just has that sense of action and adventure. Howden Smith. I've got quite a lot of these Time Lost. If you're missing any, I know they had a Robert E. Howard and Talbot Mundy, and they sort of reprinted a lot of those classic adventure writers. This is £10, and I've got quite a few that are in that sort of condition. Really crisp and sharp, near fine, certainly near fine, just a little bit of edge wear, a little bit of aging, but pretty good. Gary Kilworth, an author that is quite rightly receiving a lot more attention now. Look at that, isn't that an excellent cover? Again, those lovely subtle pastel colours. The reason I move books around, I said in my last video, is that I'm looking at the book, I'm looking at the table. What I can't see is what's going through the camera. Okay, so I don't know whether there's glare coming off these bags or not. So again, a wraparound painting there, illustration, and I got £5 on that. It's a penguin. It's in lovely shape. Isn't that beautiful? There we go. What have we got here? Yeah, I suppose inspired by Boris Frazetta. I mean, who knows? But one of these sort of composition paintings where you have different sort of elements that bring together maybe different elements in the book. But again, quite nice there. Daniel Horn is the artist. Not somebody I'm terribly familiar with. But again, really nice because that spine has not seen the light of day. It's £6. It's cheaper than a brand new paperback you buy from the shop down the road. Okay. I promised myself I was going to try and get this under 15 minutes. I probably won't, but there we are. The Unicorn Dancer. Again, a lot of the ones I was just going through my stock collection and just pulling out books that kind of appealed to me in terms of the cover. It was Mr. Andrews' fault. Mr. Andrews, the outlaw bookseller, because he said on a recent visit that, you know, all my books needed to be in alphabetical order. So in putting them in alphabetical order, it turned out that actually I needed to get them all off the shelves and look at them. Look at that, Nancy Kress, isn't that lovely? Get that pastoral feel. Again, the purple, I'm a sucker for purple. Lovely uncreased spine, that's £8. That's come from a collector who has really valued and looked after that book. Similarly, Timescape, actually, I'm quite a big fan of Timescape books from this period. It's just coming to me how nice they are. Look at this, a woman on a stallion instead of a surfboard. But she's in the middle of that big wave, isn't she? She's riding that wave, but on a horse rather than a surfboard. Yes. So this one does have a little bit of edge wear at the top and the start of a little crease. It's not too bad. It does have some very light fading and very, very light spine crease there. That's £6 for that. Okay, but again, as I say, I'm really keen on those Timescapes. Now, this is a very sensational cover, I think. I mean, it says 7 Tickets to Hell. It's a hell of a book. Look at that. Isn't that superb? Just the way the artist has created that sort of coming at you out of the middle. That would scare the living daylights out of anybody. Part of the Frankenstein horror series. Again, tiny bits of edge wear, but essentially that's a pretty nice copy. And that is just 15 English pounds. Somebody again, I'm just going to take a sip of a drink. Somebody again off the last video said, oh, do you post outside the UK? Yes, very happy to post outside the UK. I do have to warn any watchers from America that the postage to and from America is absolutely killing us here in the UK. It's probably killing you over there as well. It's classed as World Zone 3 by our post office, which is the most expensive. Lovely panther, look, panther lozenge, killing thing, Cape Wild. I don't know what it is about that cover, I just love it. It's £4, £4. But yeah, you can almost double the price of the book, maybe even more. So if you are looking at this from abroad, there are sort of cut-off points in the weight. So, you know, sometimes it's a lot cheaper if you buy 2-3 books. I'm not trying to use that as a reason to sell more books, but a little bit of white there, get rid of that. Ugh, what a horrible spider, but a beautiful cover. This is one of the Ballantine Adult Fantasy series, a really lovely series. It's just got a bit of surface there taken away from label removal, which is why I wanted to show you the correct way of removing labels. So again, I'm just going to go back to this Dark Liver and Golden Eyed sticker. So what I'm doing now is I'm just using my finger to rub just a little bit more of that eucalyptus oil, which I'm struggling to get out of the bottle. It's very, very low. So I'm hoping I've got enough there. It should just go opaque. There, I'm just going to leave that for another couple of minutes. So yeah, Ballantine Adult Fantasy, what a tremendous series this was. There was a UK series. Look at that. Spine unbroken and a beautiful colours on the spine. Lovely wraparound illustration. It's a great series and they are now fetching something of a premium. John Boyd, interesting writer actually, John Boyd. Postage of Eden, one of his classic books. Again, there's just something about, there's something pastoral about that I love. And again, the pink purple. Why aren't more books pink? Who knows? £6 on that one. Look at that. Oh, look at this. Now we're talking. Now we are talking. For the horror fans amongst you, First Orbit Book of Horror Stories, Richard Davies. Reprinting some of the American classics. But I have to just point out the condition on this book. I know it's not ideal that I've bagged and boarded it, but I've bagged and boarded it just because it was so gorgeous and I didn't want that to be ruined. That came from part of the collection I've featured and Jules and Steve talked about, that came from a guy who just boxed his books. He bought them and put them in boxes. And I've got £30 on that one. It's just absolutely sensational. I defy anyone to find a better copy of that book. Ephraim Davidson, as much known for his editing as his authorship, Berkeley Fantasy. A lot of these covers have inspire me because they're fantasy and they say to me, oh, you ought to read this. And I'm not a great lover of a lot of fantasy, but that's obviously what the cover was designed to do, was to get people to read it. Again, lovely copy of the book, £6. I'm not bothering to show you rubbish, cheap, reading copies in this particular video. I may do one with them in another one. This is a really obscure thing, right? Put your hand up out there if you've got a copy of this book. Okay, one person's put their hand up. Right, so put your hand up, keep your hand up if it's inscribed by the author. Which this one is. It's published in India, a fantasy book published in India by an Indian author and inscribed to John Harvey, a member of the British Fantasy Society, who was also the publisher of Spectre Press books before he sadly passed away. But yeah, Fables and Fantasies for Adults. So if you've already got a signed copy of this, you won't need it, all right? Unless you haven't got a lovely copy, in which case you want to upgrade it. Wandering Stars, an anthology of Jewish fantasy and science fiction. Jack Dan. Now, Jack did loads of really cool stuff. Oh, it's that pink purple thing again, isn't it? Look at that. Isn't that gorgeous? Isn't that gorgeous? What I love about this cover, I absolutely love, is the eyes. There's that kind of lost, possessed, kind of who am I, where am I? I'm half here, half not here, kind of look in the eyes. Oh, I love that. Put £9 on that. I ought to have put 90. just so that nobody buys it and I can keep this book. It's just, absolutely gorgeous. One of the reasons why I tilt the books, as I've said before, is because they're in plastic bags. And they're in plastic bags because the plastic bags are archival bags. They're acid-free. They prevent dinks to the edges and this kind of thing. They're produced, the ones I use are produced by a company called BCW. There we are, BCW. Polypropylene, so they're chemically inert. They're specifically designed for archiving paper. And therefore, they're the one thing you ought to use. Some people use food packaging bags. They're okay, yeah, for a year or two, and then they'll go brown and start affecting the paper. These are a 2 micron thickness, so they're nice and thick. I sell these. So these from me are $9.95 for 100 bags, £2 postage. If you buy 200, it's still £2 postage because I get them last year. So if you buy it with a paperback, it's still going to be £2. If you buy it with a couple of paperbacks, I can get it under the £3.90. So it's something to think about. If you're ordering 3 or 4 books and it's going to be £3.90 postage, you can just throw in a bag of 100 of those for £9.95. You'll probably save that on the damage that would have occurred to your books. Right, I'm going to go back to this Dark the World Golden-Eyed sticker. I'm just going to give it one last bump. I'm a little bit worried because I don't think there was a lot of eucalyptus oil left in this bottle. Actually, I should have got a new, there we are, I should have got a new bottle out. I'm just going to do that. Just again, give it 2 seconds while we look at breakthrough. Oh, isn't that lovely? You could look at that cover for, 10 or 15 minutes and see things that the artist has done and used, and the care that is taken with that cover. I don't care whether it's first edition, second edition, reprint, whatever. It's a £5, and the reason it's a £5 is it does have just that little bit of edge wear, not serious, just a little bit of surface creasing there. I would be describing that as VG or maybe slightly better, VG+. It's not bad on there. Yeah, okay, there's a little few marks on the top, but it's nice and square. That's, if you like, what I regard as a minimum for condition for collecting. I'm just going to move these books actually because the sun's going down and is probably making it a little bit dark for you to see what's going on. Okay, so the Dark They Were and Golden-Eyed sticker. I should now just be able to just very carefully lift the corner. Also, I should have done this at the start of the video, so if it all goes wrong, I've only wasted 5 minutes of filming and not the whole film. That sticker is now off. However, that sticker, by the way, has been on there for, what are we looking, the best part of 40 years. There's just a little bit of glue residue, which is sticky. So what I would be doing with this, and I haven't got time to do it now, is again soaking that with the eucalyptus oil, okay, and just leaving that for 5 minutes to soften, because it softens the glue, and then the glue will come off as well. What I don't want to do with this is, because it's not laminated, it would lift the ink. Okay, if I really try to scrub that, even with the eucalyptus oil, it will take the ink off. Now, I don't want to do that, so I'm going to leave that. I'm going to get another bottle after the video. This, by the way, will completely disappear, that corner discoloration, because eucalyptus oil is a natural wood oil, and as soon as it reacts with the air, that will all disappear and go back to exactly how it was. And that's the reason I use it, because it does not leave any marks on paper or card. Now, I can't show you that because obviously that will need to sit for probably 48 hours before that discoloration disappears. And that's only because this cover is not terribly laminated. It's got a very light varnish on it, but no lamination. If it was laminated with a plastic laminate, which the printers use, then I could have scrubbed that and it would be clean in 5 seconds. Okay, let's crack on. Because I was trying to do this in 15 minutes, it's probably going over. Nina Kiriki Hoffman. Look at that. That's absolutely sensational. I mean, that's just gorgeous. You know, and again, it's the colours, it's the subject matter, it's that element of fantasy. It's just that kind of lyrical sense that the artist has managed to get, and a beautiful design. I mean, you know, these art directors sometimes really earn their money, don't they? Isn't that lovely? Okay, here's probably one of the oldest ones I'm going to show you, and I'm not taking the 5 shilling off. And the reason I'm not doing that is that that 5 shilling sticker is part of the history of this book. So this book was brought in the early 60s, possibly sold to somebody like Woolworths. It's a Belmont. It's an unusual Belmont in that it's a typographic cover in a sense, because it's kind of two-tone. It's black with that orange. Often Belmonts were more sort of visually striking, although I think that's incredibly visually striking. Some of the Frank Long books, and obviously he was one of the Arkham House stable of writers, some of the Frank Long books are very common in Britain because they were brought in huge numbers. This one, I think, is the exception. And the other reason I'm not going to take that sticker off is that there's very little in the way of laminate or varnish on that book. And I think if I took that off, what I'd end up with is a square of discoloured paper, even if I got the glue off, because that cover has obviously suffered a little bit of, how can we say, fading, natural fading, although it's pretty good, you can see it's orange, but it will inevitably, because it's a book from the 1960s, so what will be there, over 50 years old, it will inevitably lose some of that brightness of the orange, whereas under that sticker, it'll be bright orange. So you take the sticker off and all you see is a mark where the sticker was. So I'd rather have the sticker on. Okay, famous artist, alert, Franzetta. Look at it, isn't that superb? Richard Lupoff, one of the guests at Tom Lester's show every year in the States, lovely guy. It does have somebody's initials written on. I probably should have given this a bit of a clean into the ether, but it's a lovely book. It's really nice and tight. It's £6. A little bit aged on the edges, but that's not too bad at all. Okay, we're only about 6 from the end, so if it's time for bed, now's the time to start putting your gym jams on and brushing your teeth. Destruction of the Temple. Pink. I love pink. I don't know why I love pink. I love pink. How long do you think it took them to set that picture up? I mean, is it a photograph? Probably. I don't know. So it's kind of like a montage. I just love pink books, that's all. It's £5. It's pocket books. I love pocket books. There we go. Don't buy any of these books, by the way, because I don't really want to sell them. I want to keep them, really. I don't know. I could have picked loads of Abe Merritt books, loads of them. For me, the Avons, and especially the reprints, had some lovely covers. Avon obviously published Abe Merritt from the beginning. I mean, almost from the beginning of paperbacks, from the beginning of time. I put £10 on that. I think that's a lovely book. Well, Robert Heinlein. How about that? Robert Heinlein, look. Rocket Ship Galileo. That's all right, look. That's pretty sharp and crisp for a book that's, again, probably about 50 years old. Let me see, what have I got on that? £8. Oh, isn't it lovely? A super book. Okay, I'm moving around because, like this, because again, I've no idea where the edge of the film is. I think it's about here, but I don't know. If when I watch it, myself before I upload it and it looks terrible, obviously I'll have to refilm it. Look at that. Oh my goodness. Woo. That's some cover, isn't it? M. Gross. And that is gross. My goodness me. The Berserkers. Collection. Fancy and Horror. Can't tell you who it is because I have to open it up. It's £9, but I'd have to open it up and that'd take too long and I've got to get on. I'm not supposed to be spending this long on one video. Eisenstein. I love these kind of montage covers. I don't know what it is. I just love that. That's Adele. Not Adele, but Adele. And I've got to be careful here because if I say the word Alexa, she'll start playing it and then I'm in breach of copyright. So she's in the kitchen listening to everything I say and everything you're thinking, by the way. Here we are. This one is a little bit sunned on the spine, but with a cover like that, who can really complain? Look at that. It's gorgeous. Joe Smith's, again, one of those sort of slightly forgotten writers. Collier Books as well. They produce really nice quality books. I've got a few of theirs, £5 on that. There we are, Pride Monsters. We're down to the last 3. What have we got? What's this one? I'll show you the front before I show you the back. There we are. Strange Bedfellows. Thomas N. Scortia. I don't know what it is about that cover. I just like it. I just think it's really clever and beautiful. And it doesn't try and oversell the book. One of the best. A must for science fiction fans. There we are. One or two of you may claim to be science fiction fans. So if you're not a science fiction fan, finally there's a book for you. No, this is science fiction in a way. The Man-Made Woman. Now, I said I was selecting these books not because they're particularly famous or particularly great authors or whatever. I was just doing it all because they've got kind of cool covers that I like. Look at this one. It's an impossible mission when one man sets out to conquer the greatest invention since the creation, the clone. This is a novel about cloning. So he's found a young lady that he really likes and he's cloned her. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And they are desperate to get their hands on him in the nicest possible way. Over 18s only, obviously. I don't know. Zebra. Probably read it to your grandmother. It's actually a very scarce book, this one. I put £25 on this book. It's actually very scarce. It's in beautiful condition. Final book. Let's end on a high, if you'll forgive the pun. Strange Ecstasies, edited by Michel Parry, who I met a couple of times actually. He was a really nice guy. I bought some books from him at one of the London book shows, sadly no longer with us. Mind-blowing fantasy anthology. One of the Panther lozenges. Look at that. And again, I defy you to find a better copy than that. Just a very slight aging. And that book is £50 if you'd like it. So that's the end of this one. I didn't want to wrap it on for too long. I'm just going to remind you who I am. I'm hoping to get these roughly in the right place. Heaven knows, because I can't see the camera from here. This is Mr. Book 451, Dorset Bob. Mr. Book 451 at outlook.com. Thank you for watching this one. I am going to try and make my films a little bit shorter and a little bit more regular. Again, this one turned into too long a video. I will try and make them shorter in the future. But there we go. I hope you're all okay out there, and thank you if you've subscribed. I'm not doing this to make YouTube money. I'm doing this to sell books. So goodbye, and hopefully I'll be in touch very, very soon.